So what we've done so far in Power Apps Nights and the night classes, we created, this is in the order, kind of, again, I'm learning too by doing this. So we created a trial environment. That is where you should start. If you're starting learning Power Apps, start with creating a trial. We then looked at solutions management, how to move things between environments and use solution files and different types of solutions. We looked at entities and we looked at a custom entity checklist. So just a checklist to go through when you're creating an entity to make your entity mean something. And we looked at forms and some forms tips and tricks within the Common Data Service, model-driven apps. And we also looked at Common Data Service relationships and how they work. And so the reason for doing this session as well, like I said, I noticed we're focused very much on the Common Data Service, and we have created a few model-driven apps and shown you that, but I just wanted to go through in detail how to actually create an app. And also I felt I was neglecting Canvas apps a wee bit, so we're going to look at Canvas apps in this session and the next couple of sessions. Yeah, so the goal really for this session is to get you started making apps quickly. I'll show you a few different ways of making apps, explain the difference between the different app types, and also I'm going to try and help you choose what app you should use for business requirement, because I'll explain some of the problems I had when I started using Canvas apps. So we'll start with model-driven apps, and this is probably the one that I'm guessing most of you are familiar with, especially if you come from a Dynamics 365 background. They're designed to manage complex line of business processes, and they're built on the Common Data Service. So the main data source that you're using will be the Common Data Service. There are other ways they bring in data into your model-driven apps, but the primary data source is CDS, if it's still called that. It was born, I'd like to say it was born out of Dynamics 365. Dynamics 365 kind of CRM customer engagement apps, the first party apps. They are model-driven apps, which came first. So if you're familiar with model-driven apps, Dynamics 365, sorry, you'll have used model-driven apps before, and you get less control over the UI. So it's very uniform and standard UI. You can't make it other than changing the icons and some of the sitemap layout. You can't let your creative juices flow. Let's say. Canvas apps, on the other hand, they're really designed to solve one or two smaller business problems. Probably one, we had someone from Microsoft in the office, and they were saying that they're really designed to solve one business problem, but you can solve multiple business problems, and you can make them more complex, because just because they're just designed to solve simpler, smaller problems doesn't mean that the app can't be really complex as well. You just need to look on some of the community forums to see some examples of some really complex and complicated apps, Canvas apps. And you get to choose many more data sources, so you can build your app off a Sharepoint list, you can build it, you can use Excel, static data, and you've got a whole load of connectors and custom connectors in there as well. And they can be mobile or tablet form factor, and you can choose the form factor there. Just a word of warning as well, though, and this is something, a trap that I fell into when I was brand new to Canvas apps. Just because you can make it mobile or tablet doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best option. We had a project come in and eager to use Canvas apps. It was for mobile apps and for people going out and about with their mobile and using apps and collecting data. We were itching to try Canvas apps, and we built a really cool looking Canvas app on it, but nothing takes away from, you've already got mobile apps and a model-driven app. A model-driven app is pre-built for you, and that was so complicated that we actually just used a model-driven app in the end after some time spent. But you learn from your mistakes. So just because you can use it on a mobile or tablet doesn't mean that a Canvas app is the right fit for the requirements. Think about the requirements first. So what I'll do, I'll start by building some apps. We'll start with a model-driven app, and the data I'm using here, so it's the data from our previous sessions. So in the entity and the form build sessions, we used the device order and the data from App in a Day, and we've created the entities based on devices, accounts, contacts, memory, and CPU. And we've really just used that same entity setup. What I've done as well, I've uploaded the solution files that we. Again, if you had been following the previous sessions, we built some entities. I've uploaded a solution file into the Power Apps Nights channel files section, and I've uploaded the data from that as well. So if you want to, or if you're watching this and rewatching it on YouTube, if you want to import that solution into your trial environment, you'll have all that there ready to go. Then we'll look at a Canvas app, a really quick way of building a Canvas app. We're not going to go in too much into the design. It's really just creating the app, because we've only got half an hour really. Creating the app, we're going to create it from a Sharepoint list. And then we're going to look at integrating those two data sources using an embedded Canvas app and look at some of the benefits there. And as I said, we're just going to quickly create them, and we're not going to make it look too flashy, but we'll just try and show you how to create the apps. So if I just flick over to my environment. So I'm in the Power Apps environment and I'm in solutions. And there you've got my device procurement solution in there, because we're always going to create our apps from within a solution. If I click in there, we've got the entities that we created in the previous sessions. We've got memory, processor, device, and some option sets of icons in there. So we're going to create a new model-driven app. And you do that by clicking the new button at the top, click app and model-driven app. And this will launch the app designer. So give it a unique name. Let's call it device procurement. And description. And I don't think I've actually got an icon uploaded for the app icon, but you could just put an app icon in there as well. And we're just going to create a brand new one. We're not going to use it from an existing solution. So click done. And this is your app designer. So this is how the easiest way of pulling entities into your app. Notice that you've got a sitemap here and the configuration is missing. If I click the little edit button next to my sitemap, now if I flick over to a model-driven app, I'll explain what each of these areas are. The areas along the top here, flick over, link to, this is an example of a model-driven app, link to these areas down here. And then we've got this area here are the groups. And then these sub areas are the entities or areas that were within the groups. So we're building a device management app, device procurement app. So let's just say call our area procurement. If I can spell procurement. And the first group we'll add are, let's call it staff. And we'll add a sub area. And this is where we can add different elements to our app. Normally, especially when you're starting, you're likely to add entities in this area, and that'll give you a link to the different entities. So if we select, we'll do accounts, and then we will add another sub area by dragging and dropping over the sub area. A note as well that if you're in this bit here, you try and sometimes I find it doesn't drag over, but it's drag over here, and you sometimes have to click in here to drag it over. I found that quite a bit, but we'll add contacts in here as well. Just add some more sub areas, and then we'll add another group, and we'll show you what this looks like in a second. See, it's not doing it now. So I click in here, and then click add group, and we'll call this one devices. We can drag and drop these areas between the different groups. We'll add our device entity. We'll add, I think one of the one we had was processors, because that's sure we had processor, yeah. It's not finding that one. Number one, sorry. So processors, and then we'll add memory as well. Okay, and if we save that and publish it, that's us done our sitemap and create a sitemap for our app, our model-driven app. If we hit save and close, and what this does, that's the quickest way of adding the entities to your app. That'll add all the different entities that you add to your sitemap into your app. And you can click on each of these bits here, and you can choose which forms, which views, charts, and dashboards to pull over. We're just going to keep them all there for now. If we click save and then publish, and hit play, and that's us created a model-driven app. So that was very quickly. Okay, we've got the data structure already in there, which we did in previous sessions, but we very quickly created a user interface to interact with our data, and we get all the goodness that model-driven apps gives you. We get views, we get our entities, we get our forms, and we get all our CRUD operations, all our create, read, update, and delete operations that the model-driven app that comes with a model-driven app. So that's model-driven apps. Again, we can create them quite quickly. Let's have a look at Canvas apps. And I'm going to create one in a way that that you may not have seen before if you're from a Dynamics background, if you're new to Dynamics. But really, this is really it's aimed at citizen developers, so people who have data but don't have an app to go on top of their data. So I'm going to flick over to SharePoint. And here is a SharePoint list I've got, and this is a list of device orders here. And just to show you again, this is just to demonstrate how easy it is to create an app from a SharePoint list. And again, this is aimed at people who are maybe the citizen developer, the product expert that's working with data, and they feel a need for an app. If they click the Power Apps icon here, and we click Create an App, and we'll call it Device Orders. And that looks at your data, and it chooses, it'll start building your app for you. So already you can see it's chosen the form factor layout. It's created a view of records called a gallery in Canvas apps. And we've actually got quite a functioning app. It kind of does the kind of skeleton for you. If I click play, I can preview. There's all my list of device orders. I can click in here to preview the app. I can edit that. Let's just change it to 5. I'm not sure if it'll save back actually. But that's us giving us the outline of an app, and we can start building on top of that. Now, I've demonstrated that just to show you how easy again it is. If you've got the data already in a SharePoint list item, or even in an Excel spreadsheet, then you can convert that to a list item. You can create an app very quickly. I don't recommend doing it that way again, unless you're a citizen developer who has that data already, because look what environment it's created in. It's created in, well, I call it my personal environment, but that's your default environment. So it's the default environment. Again, it's not within a solution, and so us as if you're a consultant, you probably don't want to do it that way. You probably want to try and keep everything within a solution and build your apps within there. But I just wanted to show you how quickly you can create an app from your data. And this is the make. I think it's called the Maker Studio. Actually, I can't remember the correct name for it. And this is the Maker Studio, and it's very similar to PowerPoint. It looks very similar. And we've got a list of controls down here, a list of a tree of menus, a list of controls. We can add different components such as labels, text inputs, galleries. We can add different data sources. We can actually connect to the common data service if we look in here, so we can get to all our entities as well. And this is where Canvas apps are strong, because you can take different data in different places and pull it all together and put it into one app. We can import media files, and we've got some advanced tools there as well, testing, monitoring, and preview. And in order to add components to these screens, we click the insert menu, and let's just put a label at the bottom. So I'm just going to add maybe a version number down here. And as I said, that's us created an app from data that already exists. So again, we've created a model-driven app, we've created a Canvas app. Again, when we're creating apps, I would prefer to do them in a solution. So if I just flick over to my other screen, I would normally go to Solutions, click New App and Canvas app. And again, you're not starting from a data source, but as soon as you add data, the data source, I'll show you how to do that in a second. I can add my data sources there, and I can choose from any number of the connectors. So let's have a look at how the apps can work together and solve some business problems. So if I go back to my solution, let's just close that app designer off. And I'm going to amend the device form because I'm going to, so our devices, this fictional company that we're doing are managing, they're just new to the Power Platform. They're going to manage their device procurement system. So we can, we've got a model-driven app that we can procure devices on, but they store all their orders in Sharepoint. They're not moving over to F&O yet, and they're not using Business Central, but we're just trying to give them a taster and try and get them, realize the power of the platform and adopt the Power Platform. So what we want to do, we want to see how the orders for each device. So if I open the device entity and I go to the form, go to the main form, and we're going to switch to classic view for this, because this isn't available yet, as far as I know, in the new app builder experience. So here's our classic form editor. I'm going to add a new tab to this. So we'll make it a 3-column tab. And in here, I'm going to embed a Canvas app. But in order to embed a Canvas app, you need a file. You need something that's on the form. So I'm just going to choose you can choose any field at all. I'm just going to choose the title field. And if I double click on that and look at the properties and the controls, I can add a control to this field. So similar to what we looked at when we were looking at form design, and you can add different toggles. You can add a control, and as a control, we've got this Canvas app option here. And click add. And you'll notice you've got an app name and an app ID. If you just leave them the way they are for now, because once you start customizing it and you create the app, that will automatically populate. So let's first make sure it comes on all our forms, our web, our phone, and our tablet forms, and we'll hide default control and click customize. And that'll again launch the app maker studio. And we can see it's pulled some data from our device form. We're not going to use that data. We're just going to rename that screen, because what we're going to do, we're going to point it to the SharePoint list. So it's a separate system, it's still in Office 365, but all our orders are stored in SharePoint. So we will change that. We'll recopy really the app that we created previously, this one here. So let's go to our tree view. We'll call it browse screen. Let's just copy that over. Oops. And we're not going to want our form just now. What we can do as well, and again, this is one of the reasons I quite like how these apps are created. If I'm on the screen, I can literally just type Control A and Control C and copy all those controls over to my canvas. They don't look great because the kind of formatting's a wee bit off, but just now it's just for demo purpose. So I just want to show you how the apps look and how to embed the app. And we'll create the other screens as well. So to create a new screen, click the new screen button, and we'll just create another 2 blank screens for each of the screens that are in the other app that we created from our data. And I'll just copy the names of those ones over. Edit screen 1. And then we'll copy the components of those over too. I'm just hitting Control C and Control V. We'll leave our videos like that, and we'll add a data source. So let's add a connector, and we'll go for a Sharepoint connector. And we've got our list there, our device ordering list, our site, our Sharepoint site. It's like that, and that's the list there, device orders 4.0. Let me just double check that that's the right one. Yes, that's our list. And we see all the errors. Like I say, this isn't pretty just now, but it's just to show you how we can create it. What we'll do as well, I'll just explain this bit here to you. This model-driven form integration option here, this is how we get to the attributes that are on the entity or the form that's hosting that's hosting our Canvas app. So we can get to device entity attributes from here. And if we go back to the browse screen, and this gallery here, this is called a gallery control, which is similar to a view, it lists a load of records. And we go to the items property, and we'll put just a filter in there. And this is the title of the field, which is the device plus the customer's name. So if we just amend the filter here, and we'll go into these controls in further lessons. This is really just showing you how to get started. We're going to go starts with, and some brackets. This is adding a filter in here. And then if we type in the model-driven form integration, so we're looking for that object there, dot, and if I remember right, it's item, and then another dot, and then we get all the attributes that are on the form, the entities form that we're hosting. So we're going to use the name, so it starts with name. And let's see why that's. No, sorry, I've missed a title in there. So that just tells me I'm looking for, I'm filtering this gallery, and the title starts with the name of the device. So let's just save that. And we'll call that device orders. And again, it's not looking very pretty just now, but it's really just the concept that we're trying to show you. Oops, let's just change it to that's us created our app, and these names and IDs are populated on the form for us. We've hidden the default controls, so let's click OK. Why is it giving me an error? Let's just try taking that off. And save and publish. Close it over, and let's have a look at our form now in our model-driven app. See what that looks like. We'll go into the Aspire E. Click on a tab. It loads up our Canvas app. It should do. And we can see that the devices are filtered. So that's our app based on our Sharepoint data source, and it's filtered by Aspire E. So our filter's there. So if we go to another device, we'll try and pick another one for a test. And we can pretty that up. So that's us now got a filtered list from a different data source other than Common Data Service. So what we've done there, we've not just, I mean, you'd want to pretty this up a bit and interact with this app, because you can actually, this is a fully functional app where you can go in and edit the data source and save back to the data source. Like I said, it needs some work. But what we've done there, we've bridged an integration gap. So where we need integration, imagine your ERP system is not a SharePoint list, a bit more advanced. It's Business Central or it's Finance and Operations. We've displayed that that data from that data source, and we can interact with that data in that data source within our model-driven app without leaving out our drafts. So again, where we normally need code to integrate that, the Canvas app working with the model-driven app, we can just bridge that gap without too much code. So that's us created a Canvas app, model-driven app, and we've embedded one as well. And just to finish up then, and we'll get to discussion. Just a summary, both types of apps can be created fairly quickly. They do take a bit more work. They're not just as easy as that. Certainly the Canvas apps do, for me anyway, who's on a learning curve with Canvas apps. It comes from a model-driven app background. But you can use apps and visualize your data and interact with your data quite quickly. Canvas apps are ideal for solving smaller, less complex problems. That doesn't mean that the app's any less complex, because as I've seen some really complex Canvas apps. Model-driven apps provide you with all the create, read, update, and delete functionality of the Common Data Service, and you get that straight away. You don't need to put formula in, what you do with Canvas apps, in order to achieve that. And when used together, they're really, really powerful. So you can use those apps to again, bridge integration problems if need be. And you can really use them to create unique user experiences as well. So next steps, if you want to learn more, there's the device procurement solution that I used for this CDS environment. That's in the Power Apps Nights channel files, along with the data for the devices and the spreadsheet in order to create the SharePoint list. And really just so you take that away, create some apps yourself, create them quickly, and start actually jazzing them up a bit. And what we'll look at, we're going to look at all these controls in the future sessions. We're going to look at a gallery control, and we're going to look at collections and how to work with your data in the app. This one was really just to show you how quickly you can get started and highlight the difference between the two apps. Again, discuss or ask in the Teams channel, reach out or direct message me or any of the admins at all. We'll be more than happy to help if you're having trouble getting started.